That is a first for Honda.
Honda would like to show you something you've never seen before. The new Prelude SI.
The Prelude is not a first for Honda. In fact, this is the 6th generation of the Honda Prelude, and for 2026, it is all new. It's based on the Civic's platform. It is going to be hybrid only, and it debuts a bunch of new stuff for the Honda brand. Let's get into it.
We're Edmunds, and we test hundreds of cars each year on the road and at our private track, so you get the most trusted reviews. If you want to know which car, truck, or SUV is the best, then stick with us.
First thing I think we got to talk about is the design, because frankly, I don't think anybody expected a coupe to show up in 2026, especially one at a reasonable price. I love the liftback shape. I love the proportions. It's based on the Civic's platform, but it's got a shorter wheelbase, so it looks squat, it looks muscular, it looks super tough, especially for a Honda. And from the front, I think it's really handsome, and the rear has this light bar that really ties the whole thing together super nicely. It is a gorgeous car. Quick history lesson, the Prelude has always been the physically biggest car of all of the Honda coupes. It's always been for a more mature buyer, somebody who wants something a little bit softer. There was never a Type R version like there was of the old Integra, and they're going for the exact same thing with the new one. The only powertrain that you're going to be able to get in the new Prelude is the hybrid system that's out of the Civic hybrid. In the Prelude, it makes 200 horsepower and 232 pound-feet of torque. The transmission is not a CVT, despite what you might have heard. It's actually a direct drive box with simulated gear shifts, and there's a new S+ shift system, but we'll get to that when we get inside. Honda hasn't released fuel economy estimates for the Prelude yet. In fact, we're missing quite a few specs other than the horsepower and torque number, but we'll expect it to do a little bit worse than the current Civic hybrid. That's because the tires are going to be stickier, so there's going to be more rolling resistance, which is going to result in slightly worse fuel economy, but it is a hybrid, so don't expect it to be a gas guzzler. We're guessing somewhere in the range of like 40 mpg combined. Whatever the numbers are, we will find out for sure when we get a Prelude on our test track and we test it in the real world. If you're looking for something that's more fuel efficient than what you drive right now, you can get an instant cash offer on your car, and you can shop tons of inventory on Edmunds.com. Unlike the Preludes of old, this is a liftback, not a coupe with a trunk. So you're gonna get actually more space than ever before in here. As you can see, there is enough room for a set of golf clubs with the rear seat folded down, and it is a 60-40 split. So you're gonna have flexibility back here. You also have room for a large suitcase. Honda hasn't given us the full estimate with the seats folded down, but they did say with the seats folded up, you're gonna get at least 15 cubic feet of space here. One thing I really like about what Honda's doing with the new Prelude is actually it only comes one way. There's one trim and it's fully loaded right out the box. There are no options to spec, there are no extras. However, there are some dealer accessories that you can add on after you purchase the car. This wing, these wheels, and a little front canard over there, they're all gonna be optional extras that you get not from the factory, but the dealer. The Prelude also gets the Civic Type R's dual-axis front strut suspension. What does that even mean? It means two things for you realistically. One, you get better dynamic camber gain, which essentially means better contact of the tire to the road when you're in the middle of a corner, and you also mitigate torque steer. That means that this thing isn't going to feel like it pulls to the left or right when you apply power. You also get the Civic Type R's braking system front and rear on the Prelude. In our testing, the Civic stopped really well, so we have pretty high expectations actually for this when we get it on our test track. This right here, this is party time mode. It's definitely how you're going to have the most fun in this car. Inside of the new Prelude, it's going to look really familiar on first blush, but once you dig in, there are some key details that are very different to something like the Civic. Things that are similar, overall layout of the dash, the design of the vents, and a couple of other things like these screens. This is the same screen, and you still get the same setup for the infotainment display, and you also get Google built in as standard. You also get the higher end Bose sound system from the Civic Touring here as standard as well. It really is fully loaded. Differences, let's get into it. The steering wheel is different because because it's got a flat bottom and a 12 o'clock marker in Alcantara. And the center console is slightly different because of this. So what is S Plus Shift? It is essentially a default mode for the transmission that allows you to move through 8 simulated gears. They are not real gears, 8 simulated gears via the paddles on the steering wheel. It'll allow you to do things like rev fully through a range, downshift and get blips, upshift whenever you want. You can't bang off the rev limiter like you can in a manual because it'll automatically shift for you, but it's definitely the most engaging and tactile way to drive this car. When you're not in S Plus Shift mode, the paddles on the back of the wheel control the regenerative braking settings. You still get regen in S Plus Shift, but it's just set to a default program, and the paddles are of course for the simulated gears. You also get a couple of drive modes to choose from. There's normal, GT, sport, and individual. These control like the response of the engine, they control the firmness of the dampers, but this thing is a GT car at heart. It is not going to be as firm or as punishing as the Civic Type R is. You can expect suspension that's going to be more than comfortable enough for the daily drive regardless of what mode you're in. Overall, I really dig the interior vibe of the Prelude. It's way nicer in here than something like a Miata or a BRZ. You get this nice stash detailing here with the little Prelude stitched in. You get unique seats to any Honda. They're not just, straight out of the Type R. They are completely unique to this car with some Prelude embossing up here. You get leather, you get nice materials. It feels really high quality and super solid, especially for something in this price range. I think it's a big step on from some of the competition. If there's one thing we're not loving, it's the lack of room in the back seat, but it's a coupe, so what did you expect? I will say that there is good foot room here, and my knees, while they're touching the back of the seat, aren't so cramped. It's just that because I'm around 6 feet tall, my head is bumping up against this glass. It's right there. Shorter backseat riders might have an easier time for a medium length journey, but I wouldn't put anybody my size back here for more than like 15-20 minutes.
You can get out.
Okay. Oh my God. Get this on camera. Because like I mentioned earlier, the Prelude comes only one way. It's fully loaded right out the box, so there's no optional extras for the interior either. That means you're going to get all of Honda's Google integrated stuff in their infotainment system as standard. That means you get the Google Assistant and you get the Google Maps. We really like this system in the Honda Civic Hybrid that is in our 1-year test fleet, and we are certain it's going to be just as impressive in here. Small item storage for a small car is actually pretty good, at least up front. You have a small but deep-ish center console here, 2 nicely sized cup holders, a standard wireless charging bin where you can put your phone. You get 2 USB-C ports here. You also have an okay sized door bin. It'll be enough for like accessories or a wallet or keys, but don't expect to get like a big reusable water bottle in there. Because this is a sporty looking coupe, where you sit when you're driving is actually really important. And I gotta say, Honda has nailed the driving position in this thing. You sit nice and low. The seat is comfortable, but also huggy at the same time. I like where the steering wheel is, and everything, it just feels like it's perfectly visible from the outside. And you get a view of the fenders from where you're sitting, so you always know exactly where the front wheels are. That's great. You're gonna have 2 interior options for the Prelude, either a black or this, which is like this sort of like eggshell white with these blue inserts on the seats. I would personally go for that. It looks really snazzy and super high quality. It feels very premium, and it just does a lot more to elevate the cabin than black leather would. Now, I know what you're thinking, a hybrid coupe sports car in 2025, who exactly is that car for? Honda thinks it's for everybody, but for somebody like me, I'm holding out hope for maybe a Prelude Type R with a 6-speed manual and that 2-liter turbo. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed anyway. You're going to be able to buy the new Prelude in late fall of 2025, and our best guess is that it's going to start somewhere around the $37,000, $38,000 range. It's going to be more expensive than the most expensive version of the Civic Hybrid that you can buy right now. Also, they're going to make it in Japan right alongside the current Civic Type R. For more information on what this thing is going to be like to drive and what it's going to be like when we get it on our test track, be sure to like and subscribe to the Edmunds YouTube channel. For more info on this car's competitors, head on over to Edmunds.com.